into Soccer Life. David Goss and rap star Jordan Angeli here. You've got the hoodie on. You were leaned back, just like feeling the flow.
Chilling.
There was cool vibes.
We're kind of silly today. We got some silly vibes within us.
It is. It feels very off season. Like, right? Doesn't this feel like an early camp? Like, you just wander out to the field, whatever time you do what you have to do.
You got to get rid of the sillies before you start playing. But some of that comes in like my rap stance.
And maybe I think you'll have a few bars about the U.S. Women's National Team and potential starting lineups in there.
Yeah.
I've been on the MLS side of things. I've been hosting preview episodes with 30 different podcast hosts, and a lot of them have theme songs that they have produced and written. Some have put video to. It's like really impressive. Yeah. Do we have that skill set?
You never know until you try.
True. That is true.
We might as well give it a go. Maybe we can use some of these new friends of yours to help us with, some of the production, some of the vocal synthesizing, because we might need that. Yeah. And jingle writing. I'm not a good jingle writer, but we could figure it out.
We'll do a full "We Are the World" recording. Isn't that the famous? Get 35 stars in a room, and it will just be me, you, and maybe we'll throw Tom in there as well. And all of us can try and write something up. I am not creative. I have no rhythm. I am not musically talented, but I'm a good team player. I'm here to help. I'll definitely yes and as much as possible.
So I think we just sold it. I think everybody's really excited for our new theme song produced intro that we have going on.
I think so too. If not, you can be excited about the rest of the show coming up. We're going to give our starting lineups that we would like to see in match 1 for the U.S. Women's National Team against Colombia. We'll go through some fan questions that we got in our Discord. If you do not, you can subscribe to our Patreon. That will get you access to our Discord where we're always hanging out and talking during games, before games, as news breaks, whatever it is. I will be in there on Thursday evening talking U.S. Women's National Team as well. We've got a Canadian National Team channel in there, NWSL, all of those other things. And it gets you access to our depth charts, which are partially updated to the full spot of where they need to be. About 50% there, and I'm working on the rest of it. But that gives you a clear idea about where teams stand, lineups, all that type of stuff. We are going to be using it today because we're going to be talking about the Portland Thorns, doing a little bit of an update. I think we've hit, over the last few weeks, we've hit Houston, we've hit Gotham, we hit Bay, we hit, I want to say Washington? North Carolina.
Did we talk Washington?
We have talked Washington as news has come in on Washington.
Okay, yeah.
I think we did like a full reset on North Carolina and where they stand. I think those have been the 4 main ones so far. We are putting our plans to paper right now for our preseason coverage. So we've got a lot coming up. Reminder, the NWSL Challenge Cup is March 7th in Orlando against Washington. And then 1 week later, we start the NWSL full season. So it's right around the corner, with February being the shortest month. And we're going to have all your coverage right here all the time. Before we get into it, off season, do you have like a preseason memory? Do you have a preseason vibe? Like, what was your experience living through preseason matches and camps and all that type of stuff?
Gosh, got to go back in the archives for this one. Preseason is like great and also terrible at the same time, right? Because you're learning so much, and it's so fun when you get a new group together, or like can build off what you've had the year before. But it's hard. You're just so happy when you get to the point where there's games in the near future, because you're just you're sick of the routine of just training, and you want to compete. As professional athletes, that's what you want to do. You want to compete. You want a game that means something. So I'm trying to think of, back in the day, our season started a little later. So like we started preseason in March and wouldn't start our first games till April. And when I was with Boston, Keelan Winters, it was Nikki Washington and it was April Fool's Day, and we pulled the best April Fool's prank. We got in a fight, like so the whole day we were kind of bickering at each other,
Yeah.
and we told Tony DeChico, he was our head coach, we were like, Tony, we're going to do this, and like, we need you on our side. So first he put us on the same team, and then we were like bickering at each other, and then he's like, you two, like, Jordan, you're on that team, Nikki, stay on this team, split us up, and then we kept chirping each other. And then it came to a head, and we like got in this confrontation, and Keelan Winters was like, guys, stop, what is going on? And I just like walked out. I was like, this is it, I'm not taking this anymore. Walked out, and everybody was staring at us. And then I look at Nikki, we go, April Fools, and they're like, no way. It was a legendary April Fool's Day, and that was our preseason. And so it was kind of gave us a little like joy during the middle of just another training in the bubble. It was in Boston at that time, so we're just like, here we go into the bubble again. That was an epic preseason moment.
Whose idea was that?
I don't know. Nikki and I don't know. It was probably Nikki's. She's just so funny like that. And Keelan was one of the younger players on the team, and I will never forget. She was like, what is going, like, just new to the league. Yeah. What is going
this is what
on
people
with
are like? Yeah. Classic
so
Jordan Angela.
And Tony's like, ha ha ha.
Throwing fists and then walking off fields. That's what you're known
And just
for.
like a good memory too of Tony DeChico, and he's just the best.
Yeah. Legend. And I didn't prep you for this at all, and you had an unbelievable story to go to.
There we go.
There you go. You are quick on your feet. That's why you're known for the freestyle style a little bit more than maybe the pre-planned stuff.
Is that what I say, bars?
Bars in your rap career. Let's leave your rap career and let's go into the soccer part, which is the thing we probably know more about. SheBelieves Cup kicks off tomorrow night, if you are listening on the day of or watching live. Thursday at Thursday on the 20th at 8 p.m. Eastern time for the U.S. women's national team. That first match is against Colombia. Reminder, Japan and Australia are the other two teams. They will play each other. And then by the time we are coming back for our show next week, there will have been a second game, and then the final game is next Wednesday night as well. For the U.S. women's national team, we went through the roster last show. We sort of dug into some of the ideas behind this, what Emma Hayes is trying to build, what she's trying to do. She has spoken a lot over the last week about that as well. Opportunity for uncapped players, opportunity for newer players, trying to sort of push the next generation into the national team. And we see a lot of that in this team, as well as some staples like the Lindsay Heaps of the world and other players who have been around, and some legends, as Emily Sonnet is going to be honored in her 100th cap in this camp, which shows the incredible career she has had so far. A little bit of silverware to go along with that as well. So we've talked a lot about the rosters. We have some questions from our Discord about a couple players. But before we do that, let's give our starting lineups, what we think we'll see, what we expect to see. Jordan, I'm going to let you set the tone with this one and go first.
Okay. Well, I think it's important to say the U.S. women's national team is playing Colombia, which is a team ranked 21st in the nation, but they've had really a resurgence in the last few years, really good performance at the Women's World Cup in 23, a good performance again at the Olympics. Kind of fell off a little bit at the end of the year, didn't win, I think, in their last 5 games it was, so weren't playing their best football. But it is going to be one competitive in the physical side of things. They have some really top players like Usme, Caicedo, Mayra Ramirez. So they're a good squad. But with that being said, I think they're going to be a little less organized than the other teams that the United States sees. So with that in mind, I started to think of what team I would want to see that could exploit these spaces a little bit more. And so I'm going to start with Jane Campbell in net. She plays for the Dash. This game is in Houston. It makes sense to me to start off with somebody with a little bit more experience in net. In this new era of U.S. women's national team goalkeepers, right? No more Alyssa Nair. She retired in the fall. So Jane Campbell will start in net from left to right across the back line. Jenna Neiswanger, left back. Emily Sonnet, left center back. Emily Sams, so full Emily back line with also Emily Fox as the right back. So we're getting Emily.
That was the focus for you?
Yeah, I only put Emily's in the back line. So I don't know how Jenna popped in there, but we needed a left back. So I put Emily Sonnet in. I actually would have preferred to put Davidson in because I want to see Davidson Sams next to each other. But since Sonnet is getting honored, I felt like they were probably going to give her the start in this match. And I still think that's a pretty solid center back pair, and Sonnet can play anywhere in those two center back spots and also in the midfield. So that's my back line. Moving forward, Sam Coffey will play the 6. Heaps, I just said it like it was normal.
Yeah.
Lindsay Horan, now Lindsay Heaps, will be the 8. And then I'm going to put Katarina Macario at the 10. And we spoke about this last week, right? Are you taking the positions that these players are named at in the official announcement to heart? And I can't remember now. Was Macario as a forward or was she as a midfielder?
She's listed as a forward, yeah. But
She's
she
listed
is
as a
listed
forward.
along 8 other players that are listed as forwards, so it's a large pool. It's probably means the front 4.
Right. So I put Macario in there. She's back, which I'm stoked about, and Emma Hayes knows her very well. And the reason why I put her at the 10 is because I put Jaden Shaw at the 9. And I think that those two are going to interchange a lot. If this was my starting lineup, I would want that from both of them. And then in the channels, I had Alyssa Thompson on the left side and Yasmin Ryan on the right side as a winger. So that's my starting 11. I don't know. I feel like it's pretty strong. And with the caveat of there's going to be some space to exploit. So can Thompson be the one that stretches? Ryan can also stretch in behind if need be. But then it also creates potentially an overload centrally where Ryan can come inside and play alongside Macario or Shaw in moments and use that creativity alongside 2 other very creative players. What do you think?
I like a lot of it. I have Emily Sonnet starting as well for the same reason. I also would have gone a little more experimental in those spots. I have 1 or 2 tweaks from what you have, but I think overall it's a similar idea. Basically, my difference is I have Yasmin Ryan in central midfield alongside Coffey and Heaps. And then pushing Shaw out wide and Macario up top. And my thinking there is I like the idea of having even more comfort on the ball and ball progression in central midfield. And I don't know that will be Yasmin Ryan forever. I think there are other players coming up through the pool who are capable of that. And I was like close to putting Claire Hutton on this. And it's like, there's no way Claire Hutton's going to start this game. So I can't do that. But that idea, or Hal Hirschfeld or whoever it is sort of pushing through. And I think this sort of gives you a test to see what Sam Coffey looks with that player and what Heaps looks like. Because I think in this setup, so I have Crystal Dunn, the one different, and then Tara McKeown instead of Sam's. I think that one is, you could go either way. My guess will be in 3 games. They will probably both start at least 1, if not 2, in terms of all the rotations you have. I think they're fighting for a similar role of a good ball-playing center back who can cover over the top. Like, I think they are both in that vein, and I think they're both fighting for the next spot at center back that's coming through if Naomi Gurman and Turner Davidson are your when healthy locked-in starters, and Sonnet moving into the next half of her career. So I had that one difference. And then with Dunn and Neiswanger, I think you're talking about 2 players who both need to prove it this year in different ways. I think for Jenna Neiswanger, like, I'm still waiting to see that she is a national team left back, not a national team level player. Like, the quality she has as a soccer player is clear, but it is converted into that left back spot and not yet a left back, which is why Crystal Dunn has held the spot. Dunn now just needs to show that she's still at the level she was at the Olympics. We haven't seen her play yet really at the club level. So I think you're splitting hairs there, but with Giselle Thompson being the 3rd option, she's not probably ready yet to start. And so that was that debate. But then into midfield, I like the idea of having that possession. I also like the idea of the potential interchange, right? Heaps can drop deeper. Ryan can push higher. Shaw can rotate inside Macario. All of that is interchangeable to me, which I think is a huge step coming for the U.S. of, okay, with triple espresso, how do we break down a low block? Elite talent, can we isolate players? Can we get them into 1v1 situations? And then the quick ball playing is that last little bit. I think one of your other options could be, well, all 5 of these players could show up in different spots Can
Right.
that be sort of the rotation and movements which throw off a defense? Is the off-ball movements, picking up positions that are different, trying to make other teams make decisions of who they're going to follow, when they're going to stay. And I think this group has that capability, like you said, with Sean Macario, of like almost everyone can interchange and pick up a different position. And so that was sort of what I leaned with this one, unless Claire Hutton's going to start.
Yeah. And I agree. I hope we do see Claire Hutton starting one of these games, and I can imagine she will. The difference with Neiswanger, when I'm thinking about the games to come, I'm thinking I want to start Crystal Dunn against Japan.
Yeah.
Like, just to have some stability there, because Japan is going to ask more, how should I, what's the word I want to say?
More defensive questions, more,
Yeah.
you have to be locked in
Intricate,
probably
like,
for longer
yeah.
stretches. Yeah.
What they is a more sophisticated, I think, is what I want to say. Like, their sophistication level is a different level, this Japan national team. And I think they're bringing in some younger players, but still their style of play is so beautiful and brilliant. And I think you want to have a good decision-making outside back in those situations. Where I think Jenna Neiswanger could excel in this game against Colombia is because, yes, she will be asked for a lot defensively, but I think there's going to be times where she can get into the attack and do what she does best as a left back. And so you're almost, maybe to your point, why wouldn't you want to start her? If she hasn't proved that she's an out-and-out left back for this team, she's quality to be on this team, but are you a left back? Maybe you start her against Japan and say, solve these problems. Prove to everybody that you can solve these problems against a really elite team. So I get what you're saying there.
Let me ask you this about this left wing, and then we have some questions as well from the Discord. But Neiswanger, as a wide player, likes to stay wide. Thompson also likes to kind of stay wide. Do you like that pairing on that side, or would that be one where you want to say, oh, the other option, is someone who wants to pinch inside and connect? Or do you like the idea of like having that width and having the ability to always be attacking along the sideline?
Yeah, I think one of the things that even just when Jenna Neiswanger came into the Arsenal game this weekend, is she can attack wide, but she also can attack in that half channel, right? The channel right inside where she's getting the ball and receiving it a little bit more narrow, not to combine, but really to say, hey, can we use a little bit more width with a player out wide from me and create a combination. So she's not really like creating centrally like Emily Fox would do, but she's able to step into that space on the dribble, have somebody make a decision in front of her, and then hopefully utilize either it's Thompson out wide of her. But I don't know. I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
Who do you use in front of Neiswanger to get the best out of her?
Yeah.
I think that's why I do like Ryan on the side where Fox is on, because those two Ryan can play pocket if need be, Fox can play pocket if need be. And there's a real interchange of just like, this is the space that's given, this is how we're going to attack it.
Yeah, it was, I think, one of the things we found as the Olympics went along was like, you want to get Swanson and Rodman isolated as often as they want. And I think that probably was part of what pushed Dunn into the team, was her comfort coming inside and playing as a third central midfielder, or in build-outs, even rotating inside and leaving Swanson out wide on her own. And then Fox has that responsibility as well with Rodman. No triple espresso for this one, but still some big questions to be asked. It's going to be fun to watch. It is odd in that it's, before the NWSL season starts for many of these players, and yet they're high-level games in, big atmospheres, big crowds. And so we'll see how quickly everyone is able to get up to speed and what Emma Hayes is able to put on the field. Let's go into our two questions. Let's start with Callan, who says, as a Royals fan base, we want your thoughts on Ali Sentnor. Do we think she'll see significant minutes? And if so, how does her role change from club level as the main focus to the national team? I think it's a really good question. I think Ali Sentnor is going to be one of these players as this goes along, that it's like she could play a lot of roles, but there are a lot of pieces. And as we just talked about, there's a lot of pieces that could play a lot of roles, and it's going to be tough. She is the center of the universe at Utah, and she probably won't be that in the national team. And Jordan, I kind of like that for her. There are players where I think stepping into like a super team and having a small role actually hurts them and makes it harder. She feels like one where she's so good at the little things, technically, athletically, ball striking, all those things, that if she comes into this camp and they say, hey, we want you to be a winger for 15 minutes at the end of the game, feels like Allie Sentnor can do that.
Well, she can, because she proved that she could do it last year in a Utah team where she was asked to play as a left winger at times, asked to play a 9 at times, but really found herself at the end of the season as a 10 with Mina Tanaka in front of her. She could play a 10 and just find space. Like that, I think that is what makes Allie Sentnor great, is she has all those skills that you just mentioned, but when she's in the 10 spot, she can open up. She especially likes to open up to the left side so she can bring it inside and utilize her right foot from distance. So I would imagine, yes, her role is going to be different, and she's going to be so happy that she's not the center of the universe, that she has players around her. Not all the attention can come to her, because now as a little bit of attention comes to her, great. Like, I'm going to dish and I'm going to find the right pass. And she has the ability to find the right final pass, to combine with players in tight spaces, to get in beyond if she needs to, depending on where she plays. So if I was Emma Hayes and I'm looking at Allie Sentnor and how I could utilize her, I'm probably trying to play her at a 9 or a 10 and play her in those internal spots. And where maybe it's like this, where I have Macario and Shaw, they're both 9s, they're both 10s, they could play whatever. And there's like a little bit of an interchange. Maybe there's times where it looks like it's 2 9s. Maybe there's times where one of the forward drops all the way in and then Allie Sentnor can get in behind. I think she has the savviness about her game to play either one of those positions. And I think when she plays centrally, she also picks and chooses the right times to get a little bit wider. Can I drag a center back out of the space centrally to provide space for somebody else? So that's where I would choose to put her in. But when you're looking at this front line, you're also thinking there could be opportunities late in games, as you just said, to play on the wing. And I wouldn't want Allie Sentnor coming in fresh for the last 15 minutes if I was defender.
Yeah. She is one of those players where if she was not American, you'd be building the program around her for the next 10, 11 years, right? She can be the center of everything and all of that. So it will be interesting to see how she fits in and what role she has and then how she takes it. I mean, we haven't even talked about Lily Johannes in this show.
I know.
Right?
I almost put her in my starting 11.
How would you have had it lined up if you did?
I probably would have, this is where it's hard.
Play her central.
I would have put her as a 10. I would have put her as the 10. And then that's where I have the difficulty of, like, do you start Shaw or do you start Macario? Because
But
I
so
don't know.
if you're
I don't think you can push either one of those wide.
Right.
I don't feel like,
So if you're Sentnor, you're coming in off a U20 World Cup where you were the 10 and Lily Johannes is younger than you and she's stepping in, coming out of being the 10 at Ajax, and you still got Catarina Macario, who's, potentially the 10 all the time for Chelsea, and Jayden Shaw and all of that. And like, that's where it's hard in all of this. And I don't think that takes away from how good of a player Sentnor is. But I do think in saying like her base of her talent is so high, her technique is so high, her soccer IQ is so high, her athleticism as well, that I really think she's one of those pieces, sort of what's happened for Crystal Dunn, where it's like they could over time say like, this is a role we need filled. I think Allie Sentnor can do it at a really high level, which will be separate from her club experience. And I think she could be successful on both sides. But if she gets on the field, I'd expect that she will be effective because she's good enough to do it. And she's shown that she's ready at this level. It takes us to our next one from WS Pitchbot, who says, big Tara Mikion fan, hoping she gets some good minutes, wondering if any of the uncapped players can make an impact. So Tara Mikion getting her first opportunity at a cap. Giselle Thompson coming in on no caps. Claire Hutton and Michelle Cooper as well. And technically, those are the only players who are uncapped. There are other players in the team like Allie Sentnor who have never had a start, but they have been capped before. Yeah. So of those 4 players, who do you think gets?
Wait, did you say 4 or 3? McKeown, Thompson, Hutton,
and Cooper, Michelle Cooper.
Oh, Cooper. Yeah. They're all going to play.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're all going to play. I think Tara McKeown gets at least one start. And I am a fan. I think your point earlier was dead on. These are ball playing center backs, and they can cover the spacing behind. What Sams and McKeown do is very similar for their teams, and they can both. I think one of their strong points is they both can progress the ball at their feet on the dribble, because like Sam's has midfield tendencies about her. McKeown is a forward converted to a defender, so she can pick and choose the times where she's like, cool, if you guys are going to come at me, I'm going to dribble all the way and score a goal, or whatever she decides to do. So I think McKeown will get at least one start in this series. I think Michelle Cooper will get time off the bench, and I'm interested to see where Michelle Cooper plays, because Michelle Cooper for the majority of her career has been a 9.
Yeah.
And I don't think this is a very, when you talk, there are 9s in this, but I think she adds something different than the other 9s add in her pace to get in beyond. But her advancement as a winger over the last year and a half has been astronomical. She has gotten so much better at the positioning, the intricacies of playing that wing position, that I think it wouldn't do her service if she doesn't play as a right winger. Hutton, I think Hutton gets a start. I think you put her in there. I really do. I think you put her in there because you can always change it, right? You can always bring Sam Coffey back into the match, but I think you give her a start.
You think she gets the start as the 6?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
I think she actually this is me and I'm talking crazy, but I think defensively, as I just said, or I said last week, that's her strong point, right? Like seeing where the passing lanes are, cutting off the passing lane, channeling someone into a space that the team wants to defend in. Am I crazy to say I think she starts against Japan?
I think maybe because interesting.
I think the game will be more compact in moments against Japan, so it allows her to, one, can you make decisions at this level? But two, the decisions that you have to make might be more obvious.
The game, it will be more consistent, where Australia is more transitional. And so there will be less defensive work probably in that spot throughout the 90 minutes in that game, but it will be high leverage transition moments. Do I take the foul now? Do I close that space? Do I drop? And those are the high stress moments. I kind of thought it would be as an 8 alongside Coffey, as like here's a safe way to introduce you. And while she is at times the 6 in Kansas City, Lola Bonta does so much work that it's not.
Could you just see that with Lindsay Heaps though?
Yeah. But it would also be similar with Coffey, because then Coffey could step into the attack a little more. Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I hadn't even thought of it because I just wasn't sure that there would be the trust there, but that's what this camp's built for. And if Emma Hayes is going to do it.
If you're bringing these players in, you better play them.
Yeah.
Give them significant minutes. And yes, I think the Americans, we want to win, right? I think they've won 8 out of the 10 She Believes, and they're probably still thinking about that one that they didn't win. I think it was to England, actually.
Yeah, I think so too.
But this isn't the World Cup. This isn't the Olympics. This is a time early in the whole, what do we call that? The cycle. Early in the cycle, where you can say sink or swim. And I think starting some of these players would actually be really beneficial for them, because then you can say, hey, really good job. XYZ is what you need to work on. These things you were excelling at, but here's where you can get better at this level. And you don't know those things until you're playing in these types of games. And that's why I really like this Colombia, Japan, Australia lineup or setup with She Believes.
It is definitely 3 different styles, 3 different backgrounds, and all at a high international level to give these players that experience of what does it look like in all these different tests. I think that's 100% true. And I think you're right about if you're going to bring them in and give them the opportunity, like this is the place and time to do it. So I will be fascinated to see. I think Claire Hutton gets a start as well. I think Tara McKeown gets a start. I think Giselle Thompson's minutes will be probably the most limited of all of these. It's just tough. You're asking to sub in at left back. I think the hope would be you get ahead in a game, and so you can bring her on to help see it out and get her first experience, but she's not going to play in the front line. So that's not an easier introduction. And you're not really going to make a change at that position depending on game states for a lot of games. And so that's your hopeful scenario is, can you get up 2 or 3 goals at some point and then bring her on for the last 15 minutes? And I think Michelle Cooper stuff, like you said, is interesting because the center forwards in this pool outside of Linby and Dolo, who again has played on the wing, like none of them are pure nines.
Right.
And Michelle Cooper is no longer a pure 9, but is that a role she can take? Or is her path to the national team being a backup at 4 positions or 3 positions across the front line, especially as you get tight on, big tournament rosters, and like where's flexibility and who can play across a bunch of different roles. Either way, it's going to be really fun. Some new names to get involved, some big names returning, as we know, and some meaningful games, which I think is always exciting for us to dig into. Let's talk a little NWSL now. The big news today in the NWSL side of things is the vote is open for the name of Denver NWSL, the 16th franchise in NWSL history. There are 6 names available as finalists. You can go on to the website and vote. Jordan, I think you might have more details than me.
Yeah, the website is denvernwsl.com/name. And it's really exciting. From the jump, the ownership has been really adamant about this. Launched as a community initiative with FDFC, and the community has been so much a part of what we're doing for Denver, what they're doing for Denver NWSL. And so they wanted to make sure the community had a voice in this. So there is a list of names that you can choose from. And right now it's Denver Gold FC, Colorado Summit FC, Colorado 14ers FC, Denver Elevate, Denver Peak, and Denver FC. Which then you just go to that website. You can rank them all the way that you like to rank them. And there is also an option, Goss, which I like, is you can write in the name that you like. And so part of this process too is like, there could be something really great that gets written in, and maybe a lot of people are writing in the same thing, and that becomes the name of the team. So I like that there is not only, hey, here's what we're thinking, but we're also open to ideas. Do you have any ideas, or do you like one of those? Does one of those stick out? What do you rank number 1? I texted you
earlier. So for starters, I'm just saying this. I'm not saying this to anyone associated to the organization. People can listen or not. I don't love the FC thing. Just putting that out there. I don't need it. Don't love it. But I also named a thing soccer-wise, so I'm probably not the right person to ask in all of that. I actually like a few of them. 14ers you had brought up, I think, when we first started. I also do like that it's the one with Colorado in it. Like, you have the Denver Broncos, the Denver Nuggets. There is a lot of Denver. Colorado is cool, and I think as you've talked about with me, like, there is this culture of Colorado soccer players. The term we don't use is Denver soccer players, right? Like the Lindsay Heaps and Sophia Wilsons of the world are Colorado soccer players, so I like connecting to that. And 14ers is unique and has a connection, I think, to a lot of people across it. Not that I will ever do one, because I'm not in shape for stuff like that, and I don't function at altitude like that unless there's a chairlift. Then if the chairlift takes me to the top and the work is getting down, that I'm possible of. And in that sort of vein, I don't mind a Denver Peak. I think it's different, right? There's a lot of things named after mountains or with mountain logos and all of that, and I've never heard that one. And I think you could do some pretty cool like graphics and stuff around that, and then you get some good chants like peak, 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 and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. Ooh, you're already thinking of chants?
I go there first because I'm so musically talented, as was stated in the opening of the show.
True, right? Just, I forgot.
My hands are basically playing piano at all times. I just can't
That's
stop.
what you were typing on. I wish we could hear some of those notes you have been creating over there. Yeah, there's a lot I like, and I think it's just, for me, I think it's cool. It's a part where the community feels like they are a big part of this, because this is a big part of the process. It's finding what the name of this team is going to be. I think also, like, our I don't know if all of those will actually be Denver. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm not in that privy to that. But like, if something sounds better as Colorado, do you go with that over Denver? And maybe that's something that we'll see in that slate that people can type in their names. And so there's some good options, but also I know people are super creative and might just think of something that we haven't thought of, which is just what we wanted to provide, this opportunity where the community feels like they're really a part of it.
There is some team in North America that did an open vote, and it was the write-in option that ended up winning. I think it may have been the Seattle Sounders. I think they didn't put Sounders, which was the original name, in there. I'm sure I'm wrong about that, and someone will correct me soon, but I think that's what it was.
Okay.
And then it ended up being that was the one that everyone was like, yeah, of course, this is what we're going to pick. So groupthink can come however it does. And as you said, there's a lot of creativity out there. Either way, it's exciting. It's the next step. It's the next stage. And it feels like it probably won't catch us as off guard as Boss Nation, because there's a decent chance, now that we already know what most of the options are, that it won't go in that direction, but that's neither here nor there. In other news so far this week, before we dig in on our Portland Thorns, Ohani Hernandez has signed with Orlando, 24-year-old right back, coming over from Real Madrid, World Cup champion. Not a bad piece to add for the reigning champions who are returning most of this team. It is also interesting that it comes in a week in which Emily Sams has signed an extension, and Corey Dyke, who finished the year playing right back for this team, signed an extension as well. So it feels like solidifying what was great last year and adding to it all at the same time.
Orlando is continuing to impress in the way that they are re-signing some of these players and how they've built and the additions that they're bringing in. And just someone with a different style, I think, too, that there has been a lot of Portuguese, Brazilian flair to this group. And now you're bringing in a Spanish player. I like it. I think it suits what Seb Hines is trying to do. And then with Corey Dyke, she was playing right back, but she also played left back. She played as a winger at times. She played in the midfield. Like, this is a Swiss Army knife of a player, and she can play in a lot of different spots. But also, she's not going to be afraid of that competition. I think we saw that last year in her winning out that spot rightfully. So it'll be interesting to see how you put all these really good pieces together on the field if you're Seb Hines, and we'll get to see it before season starts in the Challenge Cup, March 7th.
Yeah. They are that first game. It will be, I think, fun to watch the progression of this club, because I think last year we saw them grow as a team, but in the end, they won a championship being a mid-block to lower block team a large portion of the time. And this feels like one of those moves that can start to take you to being like, oh, we are a possession dominator all the time. And I think bringing in Carson Pickett as well could potentially add to that. And you are still potentially having to replace Adriana in the starting lineup, who was sold because you got this outrageous deal that was an option and it was like a must take. And there's depth in this team, but you talk about now, can Corey Dyke push into one of those positions, or does she push someone else wide and come back into central midfield, or does a Pickett or a Bello get pushed into the front line and then Dyke gets to start at left back? Just having those options is really, really big. And then having the potential to have a starter who can progress your style a little more and take some of the pressure off the back line in those build-outs, because she's comfortable to come inside and get possession off the sideline and be sort of an outlet and an option as well, feels really good. And you have to think it feels good for this team to get Sams extended under that contract, because as this goes along and there are some of the pieces of this spine that are a little bit more senior, it feels like Sams is going to be the long-term. Her and Banda, this is built around. They're there for 5-7 years, and some pieces come in and out, but they're the consistents, and now they know that.
Yeah, no, really good points. Watch out. Orlando's still cooking.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like we're going to get the drop-off here. I'm going to ask you this. We're going to go into our preseason stuff as the weeks go along, but last year, all four, the top 4 seeds, only one of them had made the playoffs the year before. It was Gotham, who had rebuilt and retooled. But basically the whole league flipped, where it was all of the teams that finished strong but outside the playoffs went on to win in Washington and Orlando and all of that. That feels unlikely this year. It just feels unlikely that those teams take a step back the teams did 2 years ago. But I feel like I would have said this 12 months ago as well.
I know. What I think is going to happen is, because last year was an expansion year, I think it's going to get a lot tighter again, it was 2 years ago, where the top to the bottom was 11 points. And we were like, who is going to make the playoffs? How is this possible? I think it's going to revert back to that again, because now you have players who have played in the league at starting positions for a whole year, and Utah's going to compete. Houston's going to compete. And this is going to be a lot tighter of a race. So I think it's going to revert back, but I think we're going to see it again with expansion. And I think that's going to be the rhythm for a little bit, for at least the next 2 years. But I do think it's going to get really tight again. I don't think a lot of teams are going to fall off. I think Seattle is going to be more competitive. I think those other two teams that I just mentioned, where it just is going to be a tight race.
Yeah. One of the things that will also interest me as early in the year is, I think Equalizer has a really good article about this. Without the draft, the way things have happened. So I think it's like 48 college players have signed professional contracts. And at this time a year ago, it was like 5. Because in the draft, it's like you got drafted, you didn't know you were going to go there. You got to pick up your life and move there. You have to close out school. You get into preseason, and sometimes your contract's not done yet. I just wonder now if some of those players are ready to hit the ground running faster because they've had time to like pick the right spot, mentally get around it, establish, get in contact with the coach, all those things. And if that then deepens the player pool a little bit more in a way in which you probably have less of a floor, and therefore games are tighter and more competitive on top of what you said, which was you added 22 starting spots last year to a league that still had to fill that with the right talent and sort of get everyone in the right place. And I think in the movement we've seen in the offseason, it feels like a lot of good player, wrong club, or bad role, and now they've sort of reassessed and shifted in, and how that then affects things going forward. We will see some really cool coverage of last season coming up in a moment, as the For the Win Amazon documentary has put out a trailer. It's coming out, 4-part series. A ton of it seems like behind the scenes content. A lot of sit downs. It looks like with all the big players from last year, Marta included, but like everyone who was heavily involved seems, from the few clips we've seen, to have had those sort of sit downs and talk things through. I believe it's the producers of The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan Bulls documentary. So I'm pretty excited for this, because I mean, if you just give me high quality cameras behind the scenes with a couple of interviews, like I'm already sold, but this feels like a good year to have done it.
I was just watching OJ doc. I'd rather watch, For the Win. I'd rather watch this than that. But, give me a good documentary, give me behind the scenes, make me love these players. And that's what this is going to do, is you're going to, now I think a lot of people who maybe aren't NWSL fans are going to be like, how could I not be a Spirit fan with Trinity Rodman? How can I not like, I think Ali Schlegel is in it, like the Chicago Red Stars, because I like Ali Schlegel's personality and her story. You're going to learn a lot more about players, and it's going to create bonds that I think that's one of the things we love about sports, is knowing something about the player and you want them to succeed. And so I'm pumped for this. I really liked the trailer.
Yeah, me too. And it feels like the right time of year as well to be like, oh, remember these great personalities? Like you see them week in and week out. You hear the clips, the interviews, all that stuff, and you're like in the flow. And now in the off season, everyone's kind of gone away. And it feels like even just watching it, you're like, all right, Tara McKeown crying because she didn't go to her sister's wedding but scored the goal in the sold-out crowd. I forgot about that. Or Denise O'Sullivan giving a team speech in North Carolina, overcoming what they did last year and not having Caroline and rebuilding and all that stuff. You're like, okay, now I'm sold again. I'm back in. I'm ready to go. So I agree with you. I think it's going to be awesome. It's going to be really fun to watch. And we'll talk all about it here at Soccerwise as it goes along. Last piece of news, which takes us into our next topic, which is that the Portland Thorns have signed a record jersey sponsorship deal with Ring. Ring being the camera
security company.
What is
the doorbell
name
security?
Doorbell.
Doorbell
Thank
security.
you. As a New Yorker and now a person who lives in high rise, I've not really seen a doorbell in a while, and I could not remember the name of that.
Ring,
so the
please
NWSL
send him a doorbell ring.
Yeah, I'm open to it if anyone wants to. The NWSL previous record was last year. It was Bay. They signed a deal, I believe, with Suterholm, and it was $2.6 million annually, $13 million over 5 years. This deal from Portland, we know, is breaking that record, but we don't know how, because the details have not come out yet. So maybe it's for the overall length and size of the deal, or maybe per year. Whatever it is, that's really exciting and continues to be the growth of this club now under new ownership and moving forward, which takes us into our Portland Thorns conversation. Last year was a down year. It was a down year on the field. It was a down year off the field. There has been a ton of turnover. The turnover in the front office, we already know, changing out, soccer coordinators. Jeff Agus has been brought in, which is an interesting addition. Someone who hasn't worked in the women's game before, but has a long history in Major League Soccer. Coming in with Lucy Rushton on his team, who of course was partially or shortly the general manager of Bay FC, and Gus McNabb, who's worked in the Canadian side of things, helped get Casey Stoney landed as the head coach in Canada. And so that is the off-field stuff, plus you have all of the developments in the business side and the release of the plans that they're going to build a new training facility, which will be shared with the WNBA team that this ownership group has also been awarded, which will be the first of its kind in North American sports to have that crossover in one facility. And then on the field, three of the biggest legends in NWSL history, for sure in Portland history, have all stepped away at the same time. We celebrated Christine Sinclair last year because we knew it was happening. We didn't know Becky Sauerbrunn was going to be stepping away as well. And then Megan Klingenberg leaving the team in her own right at the end of all of this. Those are three gaping holes to fill. And it feels like the team's gone about it, Jordan, but it's a tough test for this group in what we already thought would be a rebuild year.
It will be a tough test. One, you just can't replace a player like Christine Sinclair. But I do think what Christine Sinclair added to the team, I think they can fill in with different players and just play slightly differently, right? Because Sinclair was at the end of her career, you're playing her in a two front, or you're playing her as the 9 and a little bit less mobile. I think now they can add some mobility to their front line. I think there's a question for me. Do they play a 3-5-2? Because Rob Gale played a 3-5-2 last year in the middle of the season, but didn't really have a lot of time to work on it. So will we see a little bit of variety in what this team looks like when it comes to how they line up? But one of the things that they're going to be happy about is, I think, health. Olivia Moultrie is still coming back, I think, from that injury in the surgery she had in the offseason. Hina Sagita will be available. So if those players are available in your midfield, you're already a little bit stronger, right? And then you can add players up front like Turner, Wilson, Weaver, who are healthy. This is a strong team who I think really suffered last year because there were so many injuries that now which I don't know if they added a lot of depth to that first starting group that they have now.
Right.
But if they're healthy, they're looking pretty good.
Yeah. They have added defensively, as they had to, because Becky Sauerbrunn retiring and Kelly Hubley leaving. So they've added Damiani, a Brazilian center back that we talked about from Flamengo when she signed, as well as Sam Hyatt, who I think is a starter in NWSL. And so I think it's a really nice pickup to sort of go and to her, I would assume, the pitches and say, like, here's a chance to come and prove that you deserve to be a game in and game out starter. It was not going to happen for you at your last club because of all the big names and all of that, but like, come and do that. And I think we've seen that work at that position. Bella Bixby coming back from maternity leave, so she will now upgrade things as well, potentially in goal. And they've signed a couple of college players as well, and a couple I think they feel are pretty talented, both defensively and Jaden Perry, and then in the midfield as well. The other name, which I have not mentioned yet, and I don't know how it fits into all of this, is Dania Castellanos, who didn't have the year she wanted with Bay. It seemed like it was acknowledgement from both parties, like, let's just step away from this rather than try and find a trade or a transfer, or rather play through it. And then she ended up in Portland, which was a bit of a surprise to me. You talked about the different formation ideas. How do you think she fits into all of this? Is she a locked-in starter from day one?
I don't think she's locked in starter from day one. The issue with Dania Castellanos in this league, from what I saw last year, is she's going to have a more disciplined defensive work rate in order to be productive in this league. And you don't really, like other leagues in the world, if you're a 10, you have a little freedom in the way that you're defending, because a lot of the times you're not playing teams that are really challenging you that much defensively. In this league, every single team will hurt you. Houston beat Bay last year, and Houston had a really difficult season. So can Dana Castellanos fill in a role where the expectations are the same on the offense as they are on the defensive side? I think her speed of play needs to be a little bit more, but when she is on, she can be a brilliant player on the ball in the way that she can navigate tight spaces, the way that she can connect the midfield to the front line. So if they're playing in a different formation, could she be one of the two up top, right?
Mm-hmm.
Could you play her as a set of two up top where her and Sophia Smith are together and Castellanos more drops off and Smith is finding the little channel to run into created from that deception with the defender, that little space the defender makes when they drop off. I just think that also these other players within this Portland team make you think, okay, they could look really good in a 3-5-2 or even a 3-4-3 with Coffee and Sagita as the two, because they have Reyes and Mueller, who, yes, they're good outside backs, but they're good in the attack.
Mm-hmm.
So could you get more from them? Centrally, you have Diani, Hyatt, and Obese, who Obese was good. I think it's Obese. Obese was good last year in that center back position. So you have those three to work with. If that doesn't work out, you can slide Reyes into one of those three, and she can be a little bit more narrow attacker from that outside left position. And then maybe you put Morgan Weaver.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Morgan Weaver as that left
being
wing
able
back.
to cover the ground, crash at the far post as a goal scorer. Because I wonder if you
and
do
space in front of her to run and like go 1v1, right? Just one of the things she's really good at. Like that girl thrives in 1v1. She licks her chops. Like, I want to go at you 1v1 because I'm going to beat you. And I love that about her.
Yeah. But I do wonder if you go in that setup and you don't have her playing as wing back, you lose a lot of that because whether it's a two up front or whatever it is, she will probably be coming from central areas more often. You also made the trade for Spanstra and gave her the contract. So, like, that's another wide player that you've already sort of built
I just think there's maybe we see a little bit more of both. Like, we are not always going to see – I feel like in NWSL we see a lot more of, like, teams play this way. Yeah. And as they get more sophisticated, we might see different formations or different utilization of players. Maybe you start in the same formation, but it morphs during the game. And I think just from what we saw from Rob Gale last year in his interim tag, he isn't afraid to ask different things from players. And now you have a full preseason to work on these things. I'm just curious. It clearly works in a 4-3-3, and it's going to work with those players. But is there a wrinkle they can add in and be able to utilize some of the depth that they brought in center back and defender and those areas? Yeah.
There's a lot of different options for this group because I do think the flip side would be, I think Sam Coffey is probably in a class of her own in her ability to cover ground and dominate in central midfield. And so if you add more numbers in there, it's not that you won't be good in central midfield, but do you take away an advantage you have, which is, well, we have this person who can do two roles at once and then push two a little higher. And I think the hope would be for stretches of this year, it's probably Jessie Fleming as the second center mid because maybe it's Castellanos as the 10 above him or two forwards above them. And then Fleming feels better stepping forward or Moultrie gets healthy and can start in that role as well. And then it's...
Yeah, I think it's Sagita. I think Sagita...
You think Sagita's the starter out the gate? And do you think Fleming's the starter at the 10 or Fleming's not a starter? Yeah.
I think it depends on where Moultrie's at.
Right. Yeah, which is where the Castellanos addition was odd to me at this club because it feels like a position that's a little logjammed. And I do wonder if the convo for them is a false nine or a second forward. And if it's a false nine, is it like Sophia Wilson starts on the wing, you know that she's going to be central so often, someone floating out of that space, someone coming back in, and that's sort of the optionality that you have. It feels odd to me to think that Castellanos would have left Bay and had the chance to talk to a bunch of teams and not found one where she would not be guaranteed minutes, but, you know, sort of had it explained like, here's a space for you to be a starter, you know, early on and where you fit in. And so there's a lot of question marks with this Thorns team. I think even with the loss of some legends and what's happened, it feels more cohesive right now. And it does feel like they've made the attempt to fill the holes that they had last year. And then you're always going to have the limitation of like, these are the stars we've landed on. If they're injured, there's nothing we can do about it, right?
Yeah.
There's no team in NWSL that's going to really be able to cover for missing Sophia Wilson for half the year, for national team and injury and all that type of stuff. And not having an Olympics is probably a help for this team with some of the talent they lost, and now sort of having consistency throughout and having them for the full season. And fingers crossed, the Chelsea rumors around Sam Coffey are not real, because that would be very unfortunate, I think, both for the team, the league, and for all of us as a fan. There's a lot to like about this team. I'm excited to see Moultrie if she's healthy this year. I think she took steps last year. I think when on the field, she looked more consistent. And so now it's physically, can she get out there? Because if she can, it feels like she is ready to carry an attack. Probably, we talked about Ali Sentner, probably not at that level yet, but you don't need to. Like, that shouldn't be the case. And this feels like a really good setup for her to sort of show what she can do at her best.
I agree. I think this will be a big year for Moultrie, because we saw a lot of really good glimpses of how effective she can be last year. And we knew that, right? She's just been young, and she's been growing at a really nice pace, I think. But to me, what we saw from her last year, her ability for the final pass, have a really good final pass, to pick and choose when she's going to call her own number and take a shot and try to beat a defender at the top of the box. I think her decision-making has elevated. It is making me feel like this is going to be a breakout year for Olivia Moultrie. With a caveat, I think it depends on who's around her and the health of the players around her, because she cannot, nor should she, how old is she now, 19?
19. She'll play this full season as a 19-year-old.
Yeah. She shouldn't have to carry the team, right? So if there's players around her, if, Weaver's now healthy for the full season, Wilson is healthy for the full season. When you have players like that, it's so much easier to stay in your lane and to be really elite, instead of feeling like you have to cover and carry so much weight all the time. So I'm really looking forward to watching her this year and seeing how she can progress, and what the next step in her career is.
Yeah, that final pass last year was impressive to watch. Her timing, the way she sucks defenders in, was able to slide that ball through. But then there wasn't a lot of time when she was on the field where it felt like she was too easy to play against, right? Your idea is like, well, an 18-year-old in central midfield, the other team's going to boss that area, and there's not going to be counter-pressing, and it's going to be too easy to play through. It didn't feel that way. It felt like she took huge steps when she was on the field. Now it's just about getting on the field consistently. And as you said, having Weaver for a full year is a massive add for a number 10 who's looking for weapons to play off of and looking for someone to slip through.
Yeah, just like, let me ping it over here and go run after it. Like, hello. Yeah,
there's always an outlet, and there's always an option in situations
and Raylan
like
Turner as well, who has that same get behind the back line attitude. So I do think she has good outlets. It's can they all find cohesion?
Yep. Pacific Northwest has been the center of the league for long stretches so far. We were going to do both teams, but it didn't feel like we had enough time to dig into both of them. So we'll talk Seattle a little bit more probably next week. They are two teams in very similar situations, changes of ownership, which I think has thrown off a few transfer windows, some legends leaving. For Seattle, there's obviously more consistency from the coaching soccer structure down than there is in Portland. But they're both sort of, I think, trying to readjust to the next NWSL, the changes in the league, the way a San Diego and a Washington has pushed things, and what Orlando's been able to follow up and do so far in Kansas City, I think. Now we're going to see where the Pacific Northwest falls in all of this, and it's exciting. We are not that far away from the season. We've got SheBelieves Cup around the corner. I've already made Jordan nervous with this one, so I will leave it at that. Thank you to all of you for listening. Thank you to all of you for watching live. And we'll continue on here, covering all things NWSL heading into the season. We've got MLS coverage as well, US Women's National Team, US Men's National